we're not tired of talking about Connor Bedard. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, we're just getting started.
So right now we are going to welcome in the voice of the Regina Pats. It is Dante De Caria. Dante, thanks for taking time for us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Happy to, be on the other side of the border.
There you go. Yeah. So, all right, the first question is, what is the nickname? Is it Bedsy? People are wondering, what do the teammates call Connor Bedard?
Yeah, I call him Bedsy. His teammates call him Bedsy. Dards is another one. I think those are kind of the two that kind of come to mind. Sometimes I'll say 9'8". I think those are kind of the three that kind of come to mind. Or I'll just say Connor.
Yeah, boy, hockey players, it's no lack of creativity when it comes to the nicknames. It's always they always spend a lot of time building that up.
It works. All
right, well, no one had a better seat for Connor Bedard's season last year than you. So, look, we know the hype is real, but tell us, what was it like to watch that kid play?
You know what? It was a pleasure to watch him play. I still have to pinch myself. I was pinching myself over the course of the season. I think around the 25 games left in the season mark, I was like, okay, I'm going to count every single one of them, right? Because it was just going to be special that I'll never have an opportunity to see this player again unless I eventually move up the ranks and call games in the NHL, which is obviously my hopes and dreams. But it was just a pleasure, not just to watch him on the ice, but to deal with him on the ice. I'm happy to call him a friend. Somebody that, we share a lot of similar interests with. He's a very hardworking individual. He's a kind person. He's somebody that treats everybody with the utmost respect. Just an unbelievable guy. I've been working in sports for, I think, 8 or 9 years now, and I've done everything from pro baseball to, junior hockey at the major junior level and the junior A level, and I've never dealt with a better person than Connor Bedard. And it's kind of interesting that I say that because I've dealt with, I hate to say it, but lesser athletes in terms of the hype and all of the attention that those specific players get. And, you do get maybe a little bit of attitudes, you get some, cockiness and stuff like that. Never with Connor Bedard, never at all. He treated everybody with the utmost respect, whether it was just the staff here at the office, myself, the coaching staff, our fans, his teammates, the janitor. It didn't matter who it was. This is a guy that's bred to be a star player, a marketable player in the NHL, and Chicago is getting a good one.
Something that has been suggested in the exterior outside of Chicago hockey community is that Bedard would actually decline playing for the Blackhawks. That doesn't seem like his character, right?
No, I don't know where that came from. There were a couple of questions throughout the
internet.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. The internet is good, sometimes bad, right? I'm not a big social media guy. In fact, Connor's not a big social media guy at all. Good. He doesn't have TikTok. He doesn't use Twitter. He rarely uses Instagram. This is somebody that if you're around him, you never see him on his phone, ever. He's not a big social media guy, so I thought I'd throw that in. But no, I think he's happy to play for any organization and any franchise, and I really do believe that from the bottom of his heart and from the bottom of my heart saying this with you guys today. His dream has been to play in the NHL. He's a hockey nut. He loves hockey. There was that report the other day that he was on the night of the lottery, he was playing street hockey with kids outside. That's Connor. That's just the guy he is. It's just incredible on how he's been raised by Melanie and Tom. Just fantastic people. I'd consider Melanie a saint. Tom's one of the hardest working men you'll ever meet. And his older sister, Maddie, has a very bright career and life ahead of her. Fantastic young lady, just a great family. And he was getting some questions throughout the year. Are you going to pull a Lindros? Is that something you've thought about? And he kind of laughed well, of course not.
Yeah, that sounds good.
None of us here took any of that seriously. I mean, that's just people mad that he's not going to be playing for their favorite team. Kyle Davidson, the general manager here, he's trying to build a winning culture. Head coach Luke Richardson and high character guys have been a target of his. And obviously, it sounds like Connor fits that bill perfectly. But speaking of fitting bill on the ice, do you see him staying in the middle at the NHL level? Do you think he's going to be a career center, or will he be better off on the wing?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'm not entirely sure. I've heard, various different scouts, just being from, coming to watch the Pats play over the last 2 years, compare him to maybe a Patrick Kane or a Kucherov. I've heard a couple of scouts say that in my time with the Pats the last 2 years. So maybe that's a strong comparison, but he is going to be somebody that people are going to be comparing players in the future to him. So I wouldn't go as far as comparing him to a Kucherov or a Kane, because I think he's just going to be his own player rather than just saying, yeah, he's just like this guy or he's just like that guy. But I think it's really going to come down to how hard he works. And I have no doubt that he will work extremely hard to play a two-way game up the middle. This is somebody that is very close friends with Matt Barzal. They train together during the offseason, and Barzal is a pretty good 200-foot center. So if Connor, continues to train with guys like Barzal and Crosby and McDavid and so on and so forth, then I have no doubt in my mind that he will be able to stay at the center ice position. I hate when people talk about his size. Yeah, he's 5'10", right? But this guy is built like an ox. Like, his thighs are massive. His arms, you can see the veins popping out, and he's not even flexing. And he's like around 190 pounds at 5'10". Like, he's just built differently. This guy trains hard every single day. He does not take a minute, an hour off. One of the hardest guys I've ever met in my hardest working guys I've ever worked with or met in my entire life.
It's funny you mentioned the character, because it's something that we've heard repeatedly. We talked to Colton Dach and Kevin Korchinski and Nolan Allen from the Seattle Thunderbirds, all Blackhawks prospects, and they all had the same thing to say about their experience with him at World Juniors. Was like, well, yeah, I mean, obviously he's great, but he's this great teammate. And Doc said when his shoulder was hurt, he came and checked on him and all those sort of things. I think that is such an important thing, because for a kid to step in day one with the expectations he's going to have and all the focus he's going to have that good of a head on his shoulders has to make Hawks fans feel good. And it's great to hear that even as he's come and crushed every expectation that he's had up to now, he has still been able to keep that level head about him.
Yeah, I'm happy you asked that question, and maybe I won't get into specific stories, and I'll try to maybe, talk about a couple of examples with me over the last 2 years with Connor. Connor was always somebody that even if I was feeling down or he saw there was something up with me, he would check on me, and I'm just the broadcaster and the comms guy, right? Like, that's just the kind of guy he is. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, he's just built differently. He's raised the right way. And you guys can consider the right way whatever you want to consider it. A lot of people have different opinions, but in my opinion, that is the right way. And, there was something earlier in the year with myself, just to kind of use my experiences and my examples, to kind of answer that question, just like Colton Korchinski probably did with you guys. And that was, I got in a little bit of not a car accident, but I backed my truck into our assistant coach, or my car into our assistant coach's truck. And I was really down and upset about it. I wasn't paying attention, and I had to get a new bumper and stuff like that. And I went to the rink, and I was really down, and he saw that I was down, and a lot of the guys were kind of giving me a hard time about it and stuff like that. And he came up right behind me, put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Dante, it's not a big deal. It's a small, it's a small scratch. It's not a scratch, but something along the lines of that." He just said, "Brush it off. And, you didn't get in a big accident or anything. You're all right. And it's all good. Just forget about it. And, these things like fixing a car or something like that, or fixing a phone, they can be fixed." And to me, that's really mature of a 17-year-old to think that way, because I'm 25 and I wasn't even thinking that way, right? Just kind of a little example of just the kind of guy he is. And, there were certain examples with myself or teammates or staff, people around the rink that he was always checking in on. Like, when he asked you when you came to the rink on a day-to-day basis how you're doing, like, he actually means it. Like, he's not just asking it just to ask it to make himself look good. Like, he actually truly means it from the bottom of his heart. And that just explains a lot about his character, right? Like, kind of get lost for words when I talk about these things. I do have a lot more examples that I'll kind of keep in-house, but that was just kind of one that I thought I'd share with you guys today.
How does he lead on the ice? We had, during the Blackhawks dynasty, Jonathan Toews was kind of the quiet lead by example guy. Same with Marian Hossa, where Brent Seabrook was more of the vocal, like, rah-rah guy. What is Connor Bedard's leadership style?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I've thought about it a lot. I don't think I have like a clear answer, because I'm not in the room. Like, after a certain point, I'm upstairs in the booth getting ready and stuff like that. So I'm not really in the dressing room when it comes to that stuff. As far as, practices and stuff like that, he's a very positive guy. And Yeah, you know what? I think he would lead by example. Again, I don't know if I can answer the question as far as, what he says in the dressing room in between periods and after the game. I know he's very intense. He's very competitive. He's somebody that, wants everybody to work just as hard as he does, because that's what he expects of everyone else. And he wants everybody to be great. And he wants all of his teammates to succeed. He's not about his own statistics. He's about everyone else around him. He's more excited when a player on our team scores his first career goal after 2 years without a goal than when he scores number 70, right? So it's very interesting. I'm not entirely sure what kind of a leader he is in the dressing room, but as far as, what I've seen at practice and off the ice and on the bus and in the hotels, he's somebody that kind of goes about his business by leading by example. I can kind of maybe list an example being his post-game cool down or his pre-game training routine. A lot of guys started to really pick up on what he was doing, and everybody was kind of just like copying him. It started off with like one or two guys doing it with him, and then like all of a sudden like half the team was doing the same cool down as him, which is kind of funny because he takes his time after the game. He likes to really cool down. He takes care of his body, and instead of the bus waiting for one individual, we were waiting for like 10 or 12 guys, which myself and the coaching staff would always kind of laugh about. You look, and half the bus at the start of the season was full. Half the bus at the end of the season was empty, and we were just waiting for a couple of guys. And sure enough, you turn around the corner, and there's Connor with like 6 or 7 guys doing the exact same thing as him.
It's funny you mentioned him not being concerned about his stats. There's a video that made it across my timeline last night, and I'll try to find it for a later show. But he's told that he broke a record, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I really wasn't." I didn't know that, but I'm more worried about the game. We got a good period. We got 40 minutes ahead of us. Like it didn't even. He shattered. I don't know if it was Lindros's record or somebody's record. That was like one of those unbreakable things. And he was like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, cool, whatever." It like didn't even dawn on him that had happened. There was just no concern from him at all. So that sort of reflects the stories you're telling us, Dante.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I think you're probably alluding to the World Juniors records that he broke. Like he broke a lot.
That's what it was.
Your records. Yeah. So, I think it was the points record. Anyways, there were a lot. I've kind of lost count on all of them. But yeah, that's just the kind of guy he is. Like he's not about himself. He's about winning team awards. And hopefully he can bring a Stanley Cup back to Chicago. Obviously, that would be really awesome for the city. You guys have had your 3 cups already, of course, with Kane and Taze and Sharp and Seabrook and Keith and Joel Quenneville is the head coach. In fact, one of my close friends' uncles is actually Joel Quenneville. I'm good friends with that family, and it'd be nice to kind of see them progress. Obviously under Connor after, having a little bit of a connection to that organization with the family. So that's kind of a neat tidbit. And I also know Chris Foster's as well, who's the voice of the Blackhawks. I worked with him 2018. So a couple little connections for myself, but yeah, you know what? He's just a guy that, wants to win cups. I think he's going to care more about winning those Stanley Cups and those rings rather than, the individual awards, whether it's the Hart, whether it's the Ted Lindsay or whatever, right? Like that's just how he's built. He loves team success rather than individual success.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that's as much of excitement as we've all had and Blackhawks fans have all had to see him play. I think getting that perspective of who he is as a player off the ice and as a person is really awesome. Dante, I want to ask, that obviously it was a really exciting season to see him play. Is there a game or a performance that stuck out to you this year that really, like, for Connor on the ice, that really was one of your most fun to call this year?
Yeah, you know what? There were a few playoff ones that were just absolutely unbelievable. I could think to all the games since he came back from the World Juniors, but there's just so many. I don't think there's one that I can kind of like think of off the top of my head. I think the last game that he played is probably the one that I remember the most because it's the last time that we'll see him in the Western Hockey League and the last time that we'll see this generational player in a Regina Pats uniform. So that's kind of the one that I always think back to because he put his heart and soul into putting this team on his back and trying to win. Like he was playing every second shift. I don't know what the ice time was in Game 7, but he might have played like 37 minutes. Like every second shift. Like so one line would go on and then he would double shift with another line and then go off and then double shift with another line. So he was essentially playing on the first, and the third line, sometimes the second and then the fourth line Just unbelievable.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
that's how conditioned he is, though, right? Like
Yeah,
that's how
yeah.
well he keeps himself in shape. Uh, there was a little bit of fatigue. I could see it. I'd say Game 6 was probably the most determination I've ever seen from any player in my entire career. I think some of the coaching staff would agree with that as well, including maybe John Paddock. I know it was Brad Haroff who talked about it in the post-game show after Game 6. But after Game 6, I was worried, but I had a gut feeling that he didn't have anything left in the tank for Game 7, just because, it's not basketball. You can't win with one guy, right? And, the Saskatoon Blades had a lot more depth than the Regina Pats, and, they moved on to the next round and then the round after that before being swept by the Winnipeg Ice. But yeah, he had some pretty big, memorable games. You look at the 6-point game against Calgary a day or 3 or 2 days after winning the World Junior Championship. He didn't want to take any time off. He wanted to play, in fact, the next day, getting off the plane late and showing up to the rink at 5:00. And he said, all right, let me get my gear on. Let me go out there and play. So, he doesn't take a practice off either, guys. Like, this is a guy who, anytime the coaching staff had to tell him that he wasn't allowed to skate that day due to whether it was something that he was nursing, or maybe he was sick, or he needed some rest because he plays so many minutes. Like, it was like I can't even describe his face. I can't even describe the feeling that he was going through, because that's how much he wanted to practice. And this is a guy, say practice is from 2 to 3 or 2 to 2:45. He would stay on until 4:00 because the ice is done at 4. And we would, myself, the equipment staff, the coaching staff, whoever was there would have to stand on the bench and literally go with our hand and yell at him like, okay, it's time to go. We want to go home. We're done at 4:30. You got to be out of the room by 4:30. And he's just like, yeah, 50 more minutes, 50 more minutes. And guys would stay out with him. And there was kind of something funny. I think it was at the end of practice, I was standing on the bench, and Alexander Suzdalev steps off the ice, and Connor comes up to him. He goes, where are you going? And he's like, to the room. I'm done. He's looking at the clock, and he's just like, Alex, it's only 3:15. He's just like, yeah, I'm done. He's like, you can't go just yet. We got to go another 15 minutes at least. Something like that. He said something like that. And he was like, I don't remember the exact words, so don't quote me on this, but it was something on the lines of that. And then Alex is like, all right, I'll stay on. I'll shoot a few more.
I guess I have to now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That sounds very, a lot of what people said that played with Jonathan Toews was, if that guy is going to be the hardest working guy in the team, what is my excuse? Right? And that's that leadership by example is, I'm out here working. I'm out here till the last possible minute. I'm playing 35 minutes a night. Let's go. There's no one on this team that shouldn't work as hard as I do. That's great. Dante, very exciting stuff. We love that you were able to jump on with us. Maybe we'll catch up again throughout the summer, and you can just regale us with Connor Bedard stories, because we can't get enough of them.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys. Have a good day.